For the past year, there has been a relentless MSM and establishment plot to destroy the reputation of Boris Johnson and finish off his chances of a political comeback. Well, finally today, some balance from a man who was there for the latter stages of his premiership as it was taken down by the Partygate farce. Now, Guito Harry is someone you might know. I'll never forget this, from his very brief spell here at GB News, which finished in controversy as he decided to take the knee live on air in front of an unimpressed Mercy Moroki. But he soon rebounded to join his old boss, Boris Johnson, as his Director of Communications at number 10, just as everything turned to custard with the plot to bring down the Brexit and Red Wall champions succeeding. In a bombshell new Boris podcast, Guito is revealing the secrets of those final days as the political career of Boris, even now, hangs in the balance as he awaits a report from the Kangaroo Court, otherwise known as the Privileges Committee. Now, there's lots in this, but most significant is the revelation that Boris was brave enough to square up to the now King, then Prince of Wales, last year over his criticism of the government's Rwanda scheme aiming to stop the boats.
Boris and the man who was then Prince Charles had to share a platform at an international summit in Rwanda. And Prince Charles had been critical of government policy on small boats. Most prime ministers would have let it drop, not Boris. He squared up and confronted the man who's now king, challenging him. He also criticised the speech he was about to give on slavery, warning Prince Charles, I wouldn't do that if I was you, or before you know it, you'll have to sell the Duchy of Cornwall to pay reparations to those who built it.
Guito also reveals Boris wisely advised the monarch to avoid opening the door to historic reparations for slavery, but was ignored by Charles, who went ahead with this address.
I want to acknowledge that the roots of our contemporary association run deep into the most painful period of our history. I cannot describe the depths of my personal sorrow at the suffering of so many, as I continue to deepen my own understanding of slavery's enduring impact.
So Boris was trying to protect Charles from himself, given there's now growing pressure for financial reparations from the royal family for something that took place hundreds of years ago that has already been apologised for. Perhaps the podcast explains, as a result of all of this, why Boris seemed to barely bow for the king at Saturday's coronation. I'm not sure if you've seen this footage, but it is quite telling. Now, while I support the reign of Charles III, Boris was absolutely right to try and strive for the British monarchy to stay politically neutral. That's the only way it will survive, and we need it to survive. But politically, there's much rewriting of history when it comes to the Boris regime, which was largely successful. That's why this fight back is important. So Guito also reveals, this is really interesting actually, Boris was planning to sack the now PM, Fishy Rishi, as Chancellor over his suicidal reluctance to cut taxes, which still remains the case today.
If things hadn't turned out as they did last July, I think over the summer we'd have had a reshuffle and Rishi would have been offered a different job, should we say.
So Boris Johnson was limbering up to move the Chancellor out of position?
Yes, but, the Chancellor beat him to it in a way and, brought the whole show down.
And he says Boris referred to suegray, whose entire investigation was clearly a stitch-up. Now she wants to become Keir Starmer's chief of staff. Boris referred to her as a psycho.
How did he, Boris, describe her to you?
One word maybe that will be recurring in it, psycho, suegray, would be part of it.
Much of the Westminster Conservative Party might like to declare Boris Johnson politically dead and buried. But as Tories found campaigning on doorsteps during the local elections, his memory looms large for voters. So write him off at your peril.